Hey guys, Kat here. Welcome back to my channel. I am Kat and this is Catadactyl, and today I'm going to be talking about my reads in November. So November was Nanowrimo, so a lot of the time that I would normally dedicate to reading were used instead for writing. So this month I actually only finished 4 books, and actually 2 of those books I finished a little bit past November, so yeah, it's like the lowest reading month for me this year, and I'm a little bummed, but like not really because I was busy, but a part of me really wanted to get through a lot of books in November because the year is coming to a close, but it just didn't work out that way. So 2 of the books I really loved and 2 of the books I feel just kind of about. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into them. So the first book I read was #Girlboss by Sophia Amoruso. So I thought this was a really good look at what it's like to be a young person who doesn't fit into society's expectations for you. So Sophia isn't so good at school, she's kind of a bad worker, and it's not that she's not smart and it's not that she can't do the work, it's that she doesn't like being under other people, she doesn't like being bored, she doesn't like doing repetitive things over and over without any variation. So she starts to buy clothes from thrift stores and sell them online, and it eventually leads her into making a multi-million-dollar company. And along the way, a lot of people are doubting her, belittling her, but she doesn't let it get to her, and this book has a lot of really great tips for being a badass person who is really confident in like their own self-worth and what they think that they can achieve. So if you're looking for a book to give someone who is just starting out or is kind of unsure of where they are in life, I think this is a really, really great book, and I really highly recommend it. I actually did a review of it that goes over some of the top ideas in the book, so I will leave that linked down below. Check it out if you would like to see if this would be something that you're interested in or if the messages are pertinent to you. So yeah, overall I think I give it about 4.5 stars. And the next book I finished was a buddy read I did with my aunt, Ruby by Cynthia Bond. And this is actually apparently the first in a duology or a trilogy, but that was only said in interviews. When I went on Goodreads, I couldn't find any print date for the second book, so maybe it's just really slow going. Either way, Ruby was an amazing book. I give this 4.5 stars. It really got to me, and we follow Ruby, who is one of the 2 main characters, as she is raised in this really small-minded town. She has a horrible, horrendous childhood and suffers a lot of abuse, both physical and mental, and when she finally moves out to New York City, she experiences a completely different lifestyle, and then something happens to someone from her childhood and she goes back to visit Liberty, and she is very quickly pulled under into kind of the negative mindset and the very bad miasma of the town. So in that way, it was just a really heartbreaking look at how a town and how the people you are raised with are not necessarily the best people for your life, and how they can actually destroy a person, physically or mentally. The other character that we follow is Ephraim, who is a boy, then a man, who has been raised in Liberty his whole life and knew Ruby in his childhood. He suffers with losing his self-confidence as it is slowly eroded by the people in the town. They think he is a bit simple, they think he doesn't know what he's doing, they kind of just brush him off as someone who is not important, and when he takes it upon himself to try and help Ruby, the town just kind of spirals out of control in what they are going to try to do. And a lot of it is based on the way that church and church-going and religious ideologies can be really harmful when they are not acted upon in the way that they were meant to be acted upon. So Bond uses a lot of different elements to explore the way that the town and society and just the world in general can erode a person, both in their body and in their mind. And a few of these are the religious kind of ideologies in the town, as well as racial tensions between the black community and the white community, and also weaving in Southern mysticism and kind of voodoo and magical beliefs that people kind of in backwaters or smaller towns would still kind of hold. I think that this is such a powerful novel, and I also did a full review of it, which I will leave linked down below. I think that this is an exquisite book, and if you're looking for a book that talks really about racial tensions in the American South, I think that this would be a really great book to pick up. Okay, so the next book I finished is Sweetbitter by Stephanie Danler. So I was hoping that Sweetbitter would kind of be in the same vein as Girlboss, kind of a narrative exploring the transition between university and growing up into adulthood and starting that first job and finding your way. And while that is true of this book, I think that some of the elements in this book make it radically unsuitable for people who are looking for advice. I would never gift this to someone who was looking for their own way, because a lot of elements in this book are very destructive and or unrealistic, and I think that as you grow older, some of the things that are so charming about this book to my younger self, I would no longer tolerate. So we follow Tess, who is newly graduated from university, and she moves to New York City. And luckily, she lands a job as a backwaiter at one of the most prestigious New York City restaurants. However, amongst all of the restaurant talk and the backwaiter goings-ons and all of the language of and lingo of the restaurant business and the food and the wine, which I found really fascinating, there was a twisted relationship between Tess and then another woman and a man, and the romantic interest that Tess has in the man, you are told the whole way along, everyone is telling her he is abusive, you shouldn't like him, it's all messed up between him and that other lady, like, you shouldn't get into it. And the whole time she's like, oh my god, I just can't help it, like, I just love him so much. So I think like the me of 15-year-old or me at 17 years old would have probably been like, oh my god, I can so relate. Oh my god, yeah, the guys I like are just, you know, they're just misunderstood. But, no. So now that I've grown up and it's kind of like, I don't think that's an appropriate story, and I don't think that is a good narrative at all. So I was thinking of gifting this to my sister, who's newly graduated from university, and I wouldn't recommend it. I really didn't like some of the elements. There's also heavy drinking and heavy drug use. So overall, I gave it 3 stars. I don't really recommend it. And the last book I finished this month is The Vorrh by Catling. And this book was a like 2.5 month slog. Not necessarily slog in a bad way. The pacing is very slow. I'm struggling to describe this book because it's really hard to pinpoint the different things. There's so many different veins that are happening in this story simultaneously. So there is, for instance, a Cyclops that is being raised by robotic humanoids, and there are other beings that have come from heaven, and they used to be angels, but now they're like transparent blobs that have kind of lost their mind. There's the Vorrh that may or may not be the Garden of Eden, or a wasteland, or nothing, or everything. You're not really sure. There are narratives about famous French thinkers that don't necessarily have anything to do with the plot. Same with famous photographers. There are people going into the Vorrh to hunt other people. There's a bowman who is taking a bow made of the bones of his dead lover into the Vorrh. This book is very much not about the plot. It's more about characters and the imagery. So as slow as this book is, the reason that I did finish it is because of Catling's vast imagination and also his absolutely stunning word use. So I think that his next book, Erstwhile, which is currently out, I will also read because his imagination is just so mind-bogglingly good. Like, a lot of elements in this are so crazy, but the way that he writes them, they are fit in so seamlessly that I was never thinking like, oh, that could never happen. I'm like, oh, anything could happen. He could have written anything at the end and I probably would have accepted it because he's just that brilliant of a writer. So for me, I'm gonna give this probably 3.5 stars because I don't think it is one that I would recommend to many people. There are many people who definitely wouldn't like this book, but if you like kind of a slower pacing and you like just like vast imaginations and many different things happening at the same time in a slower pace, and they may or may not weave together, but that's also okay, then this would be a great book for you, especially if you're interested in Adam and Eve and creation myth deconstructionism. I really think that that was one of the best elements in here. I just wanted to see what he would do with it, and I was not let down. So that wraps up my November wrap-up. And please let me know if you've read any of these books. I will leave the reviews to Girlboss and Ruby down below. And I hope that you guys had a great November. Like I said, I'm kind of a little bummed that I didn't get so much reading done, but it was Nanowrimo, so you know how that goes. So if you liked this video, then please go ahead and give me a thumbs up or hit the subscribe button. It would really mean a lot. And without further ado, I just look forward to chatting to you guys in the comments. Toodles!